Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. I've had a couple of days off and my illness is still lingering a bit, but I think we're in a good enough spot to have a nice recording session today. And we're going to be playing some of my beloved Dark Depths. Lately, I've been trying out a lot of new cards in Dark Depths to see how they feel, things like Vexing Bauble, Disruptor Flute, a whole bunch of different stuff. And it's got me asking the question, did we need to do that? You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And before Modern Horizons 3 came out, Turbo Depths was in a really good spot. And it was one of the few decks where you can actually match up reasonably well into the blue-black Rescaminator decks. So I saw this list that came fourth in a Legacy Challenge, and it's just running good old-fashioned Turbo Depths pre-Modern Horizons 3. It's just saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's got your classic hand disruption. It's got your 4 Not of This World, your 4 Pithing Needle. Just a really solid stock list from pre-Modern Horizons 3. And I thought, well, if it's good enough for fourth in a challenge, let's give it a go. This was a deck that was played by DarkDepthsAniki. We've played their decks on the channel before. But it is pretty much just the stock list. And I'm excited to give it a whirl. So for those who are uninitiated to the wonderful world of Merit Lage, Dark Depths comes in with 10 counters on. When it's got no counters on, you get a 20/20 indestructible flyer. Hexmage removes all those counters. Thespian stage becomes a copy that doesn't have the counters and gives you a 20/20. So that's how we're winning the game. Just these cards. And in order to do that, we've got 8 tutors. We've got 8 pieces of fast banner to power it out, and we've got the various defensive pieces, you know, Pithing Needle for Caracas and Wasteland, Not of This World to defend against Source of Plowshares or whatever, and then some discard to pick up anything that's going to go faster than us or anything that's going to get in the way of what we're trying to do. We've got a few little silver bullets in the lands. We've got a Boseiju we can get off of Sylvan Scrying, which is always really clutch and feels great. We've got the Ghost Quarter because we're going to be Pithing Needling Wasteland. We need something that can blow up a Caracas, and that's what this does. And we've got the Bojuka Bog to stop some of these graveyard stuff that goes underneath us. And that's pretty much the list. Oh, and the Sejiri Steppe to protect our creatures a bit more ways of either getting through a blocker or protecting ourselves from a Source to Plowshares. Sideboard-wise, this is the sideboard that DarkDepthsAniki ran. I agree with some of it. I'm not really a big fan of the Dismember, Force of Vigor, and Abrupt Decay split. I kind of like going 4 decays and then getting some other bits and pieces going. But we'll try this one and see how it feels. So we've got the 3 Force of Vigor and 2 Dismember. We need to blow up things like Opposition Agent, things like Blood Moon, Magus of the Moon, all that sort of jam, Ensnaring Bridge. And, you know, between these, we can cover all of those. We've got a couple of Sylvan Safekeeper, which has really impressed me lately as just a way of saying no to removal spells. A couple of Collector Ouphe, which I tend to be playing more Vexing Bauble over lately. But we're going to go back to the old Ouphe and see how it feels. And then 4 pieces of Graveyard Hate. Because when it comes to like the blue-black Rescaminator deck, their graveyard-based plan of like playing one of their giant monsters from an entomb tends to beat us. But their fairer game plan is normally something that we can smash through relatively well. So just being able to sort of say no to that one helps. And obviously there are other graveyard decks too. And yeah, that's the list. Just good old-fashioned Depths. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And let's see if that is the case. Remember to like and subscribe. And if you want more information about this sort of deck, check out my Patreon in the description below. I do a lot of content about this, and I have a guide that I update monthly as well. Alright, let's make some 2020s. Alright, our opener allows us to Thoughtseize, then we can Scrying for our Thespian stage, and then we can play it. So that's a turn 3 at the earliest that we can make a 2020. Is that good enough with 1 piece of disruption? I don't think it is. I think we can go a little bit faster here. Has some draw to it for sure. This leaves us drawing one of like 16 cards or so. I think we can keep this one. And we'll probably get rid of a Duress. Thoughtseize is the more flexible one. And we have a hand that definitely wants to not get caught out by a Wasteland. Lan, so probably looking at some sort of Nadu style deck here. So are we playing around any sort of Wasteland from our opponent? These decks tend not to run Wasteland as a general rule. Like Tropical Island, Lan is pretty much a given that our opponent's going to be doing some Nadu-based things. So I reckon this is the turn we Thoughtseize our opponent, because they can play a Nadu next turn and then things can go awry for us. Alright, so there is the Nadu that we don't want to have to deal with. Let's just get rid of that. And then, what is the choice here? We can play out some Lotus Petals if we want to. And we could fire off the Sylvan Scrying, but we could do the same thing next turn and it wouldn't matter anyway, because we're using temporary mana, so I think we're just going to pass here. Because if we can draw a Thespian stage, then obviously we get the Dark Depths. If we draw the Dark Depths and we get the Thespian stage. Right, a Springheart and Antuco, they're going to get a couple of 1/1s off of this Misty Rainforest. Alright. Our opponent is developing a board over there. Our opponent's got quite an impressive board. Are they just going to play the Virtual Rangers here, or are they going to get him for 1? Just playing the Rangers. Sure. So we have perfect information on our opponent's hand, but they have draws like Natural Order that might be able to get us stone cold dead over there. Okay. Fire this one off. Let's go and get our Dark Depths here. We'll play out this Pithing Needle. We'll name Quirion Ranger so that they have less activations. And then next turn we have a 20/20. At present, our opponent has no flying blockers. It's going to be another Springheart and Antuco. It is. They're not bestowing it on something, which is interesting. They can get an extra point of damage if they do that. And then they get to do some interesting copying shenanigans if they want to. Opponent's got 1 card in hand. An Elvish Visionary. Right, so our opponent's going to get a mystery card here. And they're going to get a mystery card next turn. And we need both of those to be bricks. So we're going to take a little bit of peppering of damage, but not enough to be worried about. I'll play out this Dark Depths. I'll play out this Lotus Petal. So I could throw out a Pithing Needle to try and stop something. But what would I want to try and stop? Wirewood Symbiote is probably a fair shout here. That gives them more looks. Or we could name Boseiju. And I think we're just going to make this now, so that we can avoid any sort of Boseiju shenanigans down the line. Alright. Our opponent's going to have 2 mystery cards this turn. We need them to not be anything that gets in our way, like an Endurance, or a Nardu, or anything like that. Alright, we got there. Power of Thoughtseize does some work. Alright, let's change the size of these things so we can actually see what we're looking at properly. Alright, so our opponent is probably not going to be interacting with us that much. So I think we're going to want these things so we can punch through or take out a linchpin that they have. The Pithing Needles are useful here. The Duresses, they can hit Natural Order and Green Sun Zenith, but nothing else from our opponent's deck. Our opponent showed us white mana, which means they probably have Swords of Plowshares coming in out the sideboard as well. So probably we can get rid of a Bojuka Bog, and that gets us a Dismember. If we get rid of a couple of Duresses, that gets us a Dismember and an Abrupt Decay. We can have something along these lines. It's just a case of how much do we want these Not of This Worlds versus more Abrupt Decay or potentially a Duress. And I think this is a pretty reasonable approach. We'll give this a go. We still want the Sejiri Steppe so we can get through a blocker. What does this do? We need to find another black source. We need like 2 draws, finding a black source. I think we can do better than this. There's already a mulligan with double Not of This World. That's a bit of a painful hand. Like, if we draw the Urborg, then obviously this hand is pretty rolled up. But if we don't, then we're in trouble. We have to draw a green source. We have a lot of green source in our deck. Like, we could throw back one of these, but we could just mulligan and throw and have the same hand with 2 of these, and that's also fine. So I think we can. This is an awkward one. This leaves us trying to draw one of 16 cards, right? So 4 stage, 4 Hexmage, or 4 crop rotation, or 4 of our Sylvan Scrying. Is it worth keeping one that needs those cards? 1 in 16. Oh, sorry, 1 of 16 cards isn't too shabby. What would we throw back if we were to keep this? Would we just keep all the fast mana so we can just go? We could potentially bin off the Spirit Guide, keep it Not of This World, and try it that way. Or we could mull to 4 to try and fish for something that actually does go off. I think we should probably be a bit more proactive here. Okay, so this one does go off. I don't think we can afford to keep either of those. And I think we're just getting rid of the Sylvan Scrying here, because any land gives us the Dark Depths. We just try and delay our opponent for a turn. That's a tropical island. We're going to see some sort of mana dork. There it is. Okay, that's an interesting one. We're going to get the Bayou here. It leaves us on for most things, and our opponent isn't really a Wasteland deck. Let's Inquisition our opponent. Sylvan Safekeeper, Ranger, Springheart, and 2K. That's quite a difficult hand to try and poke a hole into. It's a little bit of a tricky one. I think I'm leaning towards the Ranger, because these can help them double up on mana a little bit more effectively. So we're looking for Lotus Petal as our best draw here. There is the Springheart and 2K. Are they going to bestow? They're not. They draw a land for 10? They did. So we have perfect information on our opponent's hand. And this will allow them to play the Ranger. There it is. So let's draw a Lotus Petal and put this one to bed. Oh, they're going to play the Safekeeper as well. Come on, Lotus Petal. That is not a Lotus Petal, believe it or not. So we have a choice about what land we play here. If we play the Thespian stage out, that means we're drawing to any piece of fast mana to go next turn. If we play the Dark Depths out, we're drawing to any piece of black mana to go next turn, which is just a much higher hit rate. So we do play out the Dark Depths. We got to fade a couple of draw steps now. This was a Multi 4, so we're always under the gun a little bit. Let's see another Springheart. We are going to see another Springheart and 2K. And they're actually bestowing this one. A Cradle. That's terrible news for us. So now they can make copies of Springheart and 2K. This card is very good. Is that all we're getting struck by? That's not the worst. Alright. Black mana source, please. There's that Lotus Petal we wanted last turn. Play out this. Play out this Lotus Petal. This leaves us with a Thespian stage, so we find it slightly easier to go again. So we know our opponent's card in hand is a Springheart and 2K. So in our opponent's upkeep... Oh, okay, I didn't have a stop set there. I was going to say in their upkeep we need to do that. But I've just had a new update on the client, and I don't have all my normal stops in. It's going to be a Nadu. Feels like a Nadu. So... they get one target plus however many Sylvan Safekeeper targets they want. I think we are just going to make our 2020 now to avoid them flip. I guess if they flip over a Boseiju, goes straight into play. It's not a May on this, is it? Allosaurus Shepherd. Okay. So they are not dead to this Marit Lage whilst they have the Nadu. But we have a green source, so if we find any land tutor, we can just go and get the Sejiri Steppe and punch through. We're doing well for a Multi 4. If our Lotus Petal had come a turn earlier, then we could have won this game already. Alright. So they're using the Sylvan Safekeeper here. A Chord of Calling is pretty disastrous news for us. This is going to go and get them a Nomads in Core, which is then going to just ping and target all of their guys. There it is. Yep, so this gets them a bunch of triggers. We're going to let them go through so we can see if there's any interesting sideboard cards that they've brought in against us. See if they do have the plows or not. So we are getting useful information here. Yep, another Cradle. Why not just randomly, through a single activation, put like 12 mana in the pool? I do not expect that we're going to be living with the Nadu deck in our format for very long. Feels like a bit of a swing and a miss design-wise. Okay. Our opponent's doing the Nadu stuff. They can also replay a new Nadu, which resets the count on how many times everything's been targeted. So they've certainly got a lot of creatures over there. So they can just put a Collector Ouphe into play now, and that should be very lethal. Even though we do get to block 20 of the damage, it's not going to be enough here. I suppose actually how many of these can attack? It's just 4 creatures, but each of them is going to be like a 20 power guy, so that should be more than enough. Okay, they've got a Green Sun Zenith in hand. They should just be able to tutor up the Collector Ouphe and win now. They don't need to continue doing this when we're on one card. Especially when they can sack off all their lands to make their creatures have Shroud anyway. But if they want to show us more cards from their deck so we can get an indication of their sideboard plan, then I will take it. Not seeing any plows yet. Our opponent's still just spewing out stuff here. I don't know why they're not just trying to win the game. I will cut this video to when something interesting happens. So what our opponent's doing at the moment is they're putting a load of triggers on the stack on top of the Thassa's Oracle trigger. so they can then just churn through their deck and get it low enough so the Thassa's Oracle will win. But if they want to show us their whole deck, I will take it. Alright, our opponent showed us a big chunk of their deck and no Swords to Plowshares in sight. Does that mean we don't need these Not of This World? We could maybe bring in the Duresses and an Abrupt Decay. Try something like this. This opener is terrible, so let's mulligan it. This is a turn 3 with a single piece of disruption. No, this is not a turn 3, is it? Because we would still need to find another land. I think we can do better. A lot of hand disruption. If we can find another land, we can really start working. So what would our 5 look like if we kept this? We'd probably bin off the Needle. Do we keep one crop rot? No, this is just not good enough. I think we just have to mulligan. Is that true? This leaves us live to a fair few draws. Right, I'll keep this one. Get rid of a Needle. And then it becomes a little bit tricky what we're getting rid of here. I think I'm going to go the slight defensive route and keep the double discard spell. So we'll start off with an Inquisition. A land our Elves, a Chord of Calling, and a Nardu. Okay, so if we take out the Nardu here, the next turn we can take out the Chord of Calling. And we kind of left our opponent with very little. And we're just looking for Dark Depths, or is going to be getting us towards where we need to be. Thespian Stage getting us towards where we need to be. A Vampire Hexmage is obviously great here. Alright, Windswept Teeth and Lamar Elves gone from our opponent's hand. A Pithing Needle. It's not the one we're after. Let's take another peek at our opponent's hand. Get out of here, Chord of Calling. Our opponent's deck doesn't really function without Nardu. So having that in play, well, making sure that doesn't come into play is going to buy us quite a lot of time. So they're going to get a redraw off this Visionary. Yep. You can play the Cradle and something else. Alright, so drew a land for turn. Have they got one drop, or is this going to get Dryad Arbor? It's just going to get Dryad Arbor. It's doing it now to save time because their turns are quite time intensive. A Sejiri Steppe. Well, we do need to play this because we need our lands in play, as much as I hate this. And we can play this Pithing Needle. I think we name Nomads and Core. That just stops the easiest way for them to have to loot through everything. Why would Symbiote? That is something that I would have been tempted to name with the Pithing Needle, because this allows them to keep rebouncing the Visionary and getting deeper into their deck. They should probably be attacking for 1 first. We haven't seen a natural order from our opponent yet. When they were flipping through all their library, we didn't see one of those. I guess it's probably difficult to fit everything in if you're trying to have natural order lines as well as your chords and your zeniths and all that sort of jazz. Alright, so they're getting a card off the Visionary. Springheart and Tuco on their Dryad Arbor. This is pretty good because it gives them landfall triggers when they get a landfall trigger. So this will really start popping off in a big way. A Forest. Not the one we wanted. But we've had like 20 draws that are live for us with the hand that we kept. And we're just not finding them. These are insects, so they won't get pumped by the Allosaurus Shepherd. It's just a case of, can we find the thing we want before our opponent gets it from drawing 2 cards a turn? Or they can draw 3 cards a turn if they bounce with the Wirewood on our turn as well as theirs. Right, so now they're going to make more Dryad Arbors probably. Which then triggers Springheart and Tuco again. Yeah, so they can just kind of wish for more wishes basically and just get more and more of these Dryad Arbors. Springheart and Tuco is a pretty ridiculous card. Does a lot of work. So we're going to get chipped down a little bit here. But all they have on board won't beat us. But it will eventually beat us because they'll draw more cards. But right now we're not losing the game immediately. A Thespian Stage. Okay, so we have the combo ready to go. We need to survive our opponent's turn. Easier said than done sometimes, but I believe in the power of 2020s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They can pump this and make it 15. So we do need to act now. So we'll sack the Sejiri Steppe because we don't care about that. We need to get the Dark Depths. Make a copy. This is the window where they can Boseiju us. They did not Boseiju us. So now we have to block the guy that pumps them here. I think they still have it, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think they have it exactly here. Our opponent's definitely in the habit of taking more game actions than they need to win games, I think. Although, they showed us they probably don't have Collector Ouphe as their win condition. They were just relying on like 4 oracles to get there. Yep, this is going to pump their guys to just big enough, right? 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah, they got 1 creature too many for us. And now they're courting for some reason instead of just winning the game. Right, they want an endurance. Just as an extra layer. Just showboating, I suppose. Yeah, we were 1 turn too slow in the 2 games we lost. But we mulliganed quite a lot. And we had lots of draws where if we draw it, it wasn't a case of our deck was too slow, it just took us a turn longer to draw the card we needed to get our 2020 the turn it was required. Alright, that's unfortunate, but such is life. Let's go to round 2. This hand requires a little bit too much love to work, so I'm going to mulligan. This requires 1 of 12 cards to win. I don't think we can keep that. We're having a tough time keeping these hands. Alright. Gotta believe in the heart of the cards sometimes. Even if they don't believe in you. I think we can keep this on 4. So probably getting rid of the things that don't actually win us the game. So we can swap this out with a crop rot in the face of a wasteland. A Chrome Mox, you say? What flavour of Chrome Mox decks are we looking at? Probably mono red. You see a Blood Moon? I'm going to say a Trinisphere. Alright, let's just go and get our Dark Depths now. Plan here is to just draw mana. So if we draw an Urborg, we get to make a 2020. If we don't, and we just draw a regular land, then we get to make a 2020 a turn afterwards. Obviously, Blood Moon can jam us up a bit here. And there is an argument to play out the Verdant Catacombs so we can get a forest first. The One Ring. Okay. That's a good way of finding the things that can mess us up. So we draw here a crop rotation. We don't have the mana to turn our Thespian stage into an Ancient Tomb here, which would be handy, because then we could just go. But if our opponent plays a Blood Moon, then we turn this into a forest so that we have access to the Boseiju to blow out the Blood Moon. A basic mountain from our opponent. They're going to start getting in the red zone with the Den of the Bugbear. Sure, they've got something better they can do with 6 cards. We want to draw lands, so I'm not going to crack this for the marginal effect of having slightly more lands in our deck. We did draw the land we needed, but it's a secret bonus land. Our opponent won't see coming. Hopefully. The mono red prison matchup is one that I'm pretty happy to play into, because you can sometimes use their Blood Moons as your combo piece. What do we not want to see here? Another copy of the One Ring. It's just irritating. I don't believe our opponent's going to do that. They'd be more inclined to get a threat going. A Goblin Rabblemaster. That is a threat. And another Goblin Rabblemaster. Okay, we should have this game. I'm not going to bother blocking these guys, just in case something really weird happens. Crack this. Go and get ourselves a forest, because why not? Thespian stage, you can become a Dark Depths. 20 life points is more than enough here. Or 20 points of damage, more than enough to get through our opponent's 11 life points. In it goes. And voila. Alright, I would like some Abrupt Decays, Force of Vigors, and Dismembers for this one. I don't really like the Not of This World. Yes, we can protect from the dead and gone aspect of things, but the problem is, if they've got something like a Trinisphere, then it becomes awkward to play this. Okay, Pithing Needles is the first thing to go, then it's the Bojuka Bog. And then we're probably just trimming on a couple of Not of This Worlds here. And this looks fine. You can board in the Collector Ouphe if you want to here to try and slow down their fast mana. But I just don't think it's great. It does trade with some of their guys. But I think we're better off like this. Do we want Safekeepers over Not of This World? I don't think so. Those Safekeepers are green. Alright, let's put the Safekeepers in. I'll convince myself. We've got some hand disruption. We've got an answer to some scary permanents. We're going to need to try and draw 1 of 12 cards to win the game. I don't like those odds when the mulligan rule exists and is very strong. This is kind of similar but different. So let's keep going. Okay, I will keep this one. Our opponent's mulligan a bit. I think they're probably going for some sort of Blood Moon style line. We get rid of the... Get rid of that. And... The Sylvan Scrying is our route towards a Boseiju. So we probably have to keep that. A Chromox. Are we going to see the Blood Moon? Or are we going to see just like a Chalice? A Chalice. Okay, that's fine. Chalice on 0, though. That is good. But our opponent's hand doesn't do an awful lot. Neither does ours, I suppose you could say. But you play the hand you dealt. So we can't cast very much right now, but we have the ability to get our basic forest. The best possible thing for our opponent to do would be play Magus of the Moon. That would make me very happy, because then we can just play the Dark Depths. It'll come in with no counters. We dismember their guy and move on with our lives. Shatterskull paying some life over there. A Blood Moon. Well, I am going to crack this for a basic forest. And now we are in an okay spot. Because we play this, we cast Sylvan Scrying, we can get Boseiju. Next turn, we just make a 20/20 off our opponent's cards. And it's quite a difficult thing for them to interact with. Inquisition of Kozilek that we're not playing. Dead Gone is the thing that can get us here. If they're tapping out for something, that's probably good for us. Destroy target land. In response. Let's blow up this Blood Moon. One of the new cards. Pretty cool. I'll have a 20/20, please. Alright, we got the match. This is one of our easier matchups. I'm always happy to see it. That puts us with a win on the board. Let's go to round 3. Our hand for round 3. We've got some protection. Our hand is kind of slow, though. It's only going to go off on turn 4. Which is very slow for Legacy standards, even though we can kind of protect it. I think I will keep... There is a bunch of stuff we can draw that speeds that up. Wasteland, you say? I'm going to play this one out. Go and get a basic forest. Play this Pithing Needle. They are cycling a Lorien revealed. That's not what I was going to name. Alright, it looks like our opponent is on the sort of scam or scam adjacent style deck. So let's just name this Wasteland. And then we can try and pick apart our opponent's hand with a Thoughtseize. We can play this game a little bit slower. Ooh, a double Thoughtseize though. Don't mind if I do. Let's Thoughtseize our opponent. Something like a Brainstorm here would be really annoying, so they can hide their best cards. Whereas if they fight over this. Okay. What do we want to do about this? We can take both Force of Wills here. We could take the Witherbloom command. So draw a land, they Witherbloom command, hit this, and then their Wasteland is live again. That is annoying. But we do need to resolve our Sylvan Scrying, which is the problem. So I think we are just going to take out our opponent's thing. So they might daze this. Yeah, that's fine. So this could pressure the Psychic Frog to going into the Force of Will bin. Our Urborg is helping our opponent out here. They're probably just going to go for the Frog. Yeah, there it is. Another card that's probably not long for this world in the old Legacy format. A Bojuka Bog. So next turn they can Witherbloom command us. Let's get the Sylvan Scrying going. Let's get Dark Depths. And we'll pass. The Witherbloom command makes me think our opponent is more like traditional scam rather than Rescaminator. I'm curious to see if anything gets binned to the Frog. No. They're okay just taking a card and playing it slow. Our own Urborg has hurt us a little bit here. So now we have to get through the waste. Okay, they're just firing it straight off. Okay, they've got another one. Alright. They're going to hit our Urborg as well? They are. Sure. Not a bad draw from our opponent. A Lotus Petal. It's not really the one, is it? Let's just shred our opponent's graveyard so they can't put on like a Murktide into play or get back these Wastelands. Going to leave the Lotus Petal in hand as a little bit of a burst of mana that our opponent might not see coming. But I think the Psychic Frog connecting again is probably going to be the game. Right, this is just such a snowbally card. Up the Beanstalk. Oh, okay, we're doing a very different selection of things to what I thought. Good information to have. This is like the Sultai Beanstalk deck. Obviously with the Frog, because Frog is the best creature in Legacy, I think, at the moment. So it's not a surprise to see it in every deck that can play it. Are we playing Thoughtseize now? I think we can do, because we might need our mana for next turn. Our opponent's deck probably has 3 wastelands. Don't have the full amount. Okay, we don't care about anything apart from the force. I'm going to play this out. I'm not going to play out the Lotus Petal into a potential Witherbloom command. So we're looking for Vampire Hexmage here. Thespian stage also fine. Crop rotation potentially fine. Sylvan Scrying okay, but a bit slow. We can force the frog on the defensive. That might be quite handy here. Right, they're binning off the fail push. Trying to get the damages in. Surprised they played that polluted delta, to be honest. Alright, they've got a follow-up. That's why. I was just shuffling the ponder as well. We're going to see a Mystic Sanctuary here. Getting back something. We are. They're getting back the Force of Will. Alright, so now they're going to Murktide Regent to get back that Force of Will. This is the turn to draw Hexmage. We need to hope they don't have a blue card. Why would you put Force of Will on top if you don't have a blue card, though? I'm pretty sure our opponent has it here. But we don't really have a choice. We just have to go for it. There it is. And they're pitching a Tamiyo, so we get a little bit of information. Alright, Sultai. What do we want here? Just a little bit more protection for our friends is good enough. The Abrupt Decays can be useful depending on what your opponent wants to be sideboarding in. I think this is probably fine, just upgrading a Bojuka Bog for a Safekeeper. Like, Abrupt Decay kills Frog, but I don't know if I want to play that sort of defensive game. I think I'd rather just try and execute our plan. Alright, that hand is great. Let's have it. Let's have at you. Uncountable turn 3 2020 with 2 pieces of protection. You can find something like an Elvish Spirit Guide, then that goes up to 3 pieces of protection. We want to use the needle first. We are unfortunately playing out the Urborg though. But the reason we do it this way around is so that if we draw Hexmage and we have the choice that way of going. We're going to see a Ponder here. A Tamiyo. This flies. That's not nothing. Thespian stage. Alright, let's take a peek over there. Around a Daze. Brainstorm, Daze, Lorien Reveal, Murktide Regent. Who's taking the Brainstorm here? Right, so we're going to get their clue token. There's the Wasteland. We'll play the Dark Depths here. We can play a Hexmage around a Daze. If we want to. I think that's perfectly reasonable here. Cracking a clue token. They're on 19s, so they can't flip this and -1 and buy a turn. But they can just throw this under the bus and buy a turn. There is a Bayou. And up the beanstalk, you say. Do I think my opponent has a Stifle? It's a possibility. Alright. That's not what they're looking for. So I flip this. That's actively bad for them. Alright. Okay. Happy to roll again. Do I want the Abrupt Decays just to get through a blocker? I don't think so. I think I like having this protection because our opponent's going to have some amount of devious ways of killing our creatures. Yeah, we just go again. This sort of matchup tends to be pretty reasonable. Okay, a turn 3 with 2 pieces of protection and it's uncounterable. However, Wasteland can get us. A Tamiyo, sure. A Pithing Needle. Alright, that's a pretty good draw for us. Let's go and get... Is it Swamp here? I think it is a Swamp, because we have all this other green mana here. Love a good old-fashioned Pithing Needle. Am I paying for this? I think so. If our opponent doesn't want this, then I want it in play. That's also a lot of turns before we get Wastelanded now, because they need to use the 2 mana Witherbloom command to blow up our Pithing Needle. So the earliest they can do it is another 2 more turns. Another piece of fast mana would be nice. Alright, they're going to flip their Tamiyo here. But they are on 19. So this doesn't buy them a turn down the line. Okay, I'll play out a Thespian stage here. I don't think I'm going to be playing a Vampire Hexmage into this. This goes up to 6, then it goes up to 8, then it pops. Just a Witherbloom command? It is a Witherbloom command. So a piece of fast mana would be really handy here. They can Tamiyo and get something back. Opponent's getting back a Brainstorm. A Thoughtseize. So we don't get to go this turn. But I will Thoughtseize. Psychic Frog, Minor Misstep, Brainstorm, Ponder. Ponder sees more cards, but Brainstorm can fix their hand. Kind of an awkward one, isn't it? I think we take the Brainstorm since that's the one they just got back. And then we play out this Forest. And next turn we get Depths in. It's also easier to keep track of what's in our opponent's hand if we have if we take out the Brainstorm. Right, Pluto Delta. Have to imagine we're seeing the Ponder here. I like seeing Minor Misstep though. Nice card. So we could just see the Frog and the Ponder. And Frog can always jump up and get in the way of our Marit Lage for a turn. There is the Frog. Card is good. I would like fast mana so we could play around potential dazes. Okay, so we have an attempt at making a 2020. They're playing a Tamiyo as well. Sage, Dark Depths. So in our opponent's upkeep, we'll make the 2020 before we have to worry about Wastelands. They've got 2 chump blockers, but they are both blue. So if we can find the Sejiri Steppe, we can try and punch a hole through this. We've got 2 protection spells, but Shoulder's Edict will get us either way. There is the Ponder. They shuffled their library. That's good news for us. Tamiyo getting back the Ponder. And they're casting the Ponder. This is going to flip the Tamiyo, which means that the Psychic Frog will have to go under the bus. Okay, they shuffled off that Ponder as well, plussing the Tamiyo. Quite aggressive use of the Tamiyos, instead of just maybe sitting back and trying to draw your whole library or half your library. There's a Wasteland, that's why we played around this. Just naturally drawn Sejiri Steppe, that'd be pretty tasty here. Not a naturally drawn Sejiri Steppe. Okay, I'll play out this Thespian stage. I'll go to attacks. Attack our opponent. Would you like to jump your Frog? They would. Okay. Drawing a card off the clue. Just getting all the cards they can possibly grab. A Brainstorm. We are really hoping that they have something like a Brazen Borrower that they're trying to draw to, because that would make our Lot of This World a lot better. They would like to get the Brainstorm back. They're seeing many, many cards. They can just find another Frog and block for another turn, or find another Tamiyo and block for another turn. Alright, they didn't find it. And we managed to put another win on the board. We're 2-1. Let's go to round 4. Alright, so turn 1 Bayou. Turn 2 Thespian stage. We have 3 mana and a stage. That gets us crop rotation and a turn 2 a combo attempt. Sign me up. A Yawgmoth. An Elvish Reclaimer. I think the speed that we might be able to go off could surprise our opponent here. I think we play out the Bayou this turn. So we might be able to get one over on our opponent here. An Urza's Saga. So we're probably looking at green-white depths, which is traditionally a difficult matchup. But our hand here is got that extra something. Play a Thespian stage and pass. And hopefully our opponent doesn't respect the fact that we can go off through this. There is a Thespian stage. So this becomes tricky. If they can go and get themselves... Well, if they want a 2020 of their own, we just cruise through with the Sejiri Steppe. So that's fine. So let's crop rotate. Oh, actually, we would need another green mana to do this, wouldn't we? If we crop rotate here, we pitch both of these to make the Dark Depths. Our opponent then copies our Dark Depths. And then we would have to draw a green mana source to win. And then our opponent just gets a chance to... Actually, no, we don't need to draw a green mana source. They've got a Yawgmoth. Right? We use their own green mana source against them. Yes, okay. I'm down to clown. And they can cycle away the Yawgmoth, but then they can't make the 2020. It's nice to be able to capitalise off someone else's Yawgmoth for a change. Now, if they have a crop rotation as well, then they can get us here. But I think the play is good. Like, if they have a crop rotation, they're going to win the game most likely anyway. But we do have the Not of This World, which can bounce a Caracas. Or bounce an activation of a Caracas. Oh, I cast a Boseiju. Well, that's pretty disgusting, isn't it? Okay. A little bit rude. But we'll live. Okay, so 1-2 mana, we turn this, that doesn't do anything. I guess we're Sylvan Scrying here. And we're going to get Dark Depths. Yeah, we had a lot of stuff covered from our opponent, but unfortunately, Boseiju wasn't one of them. Our opponent's deck is just full of ways of interacting with us. Right, so it's going to name Thespian Stage now, I would have to imagine. They didn't float off that as a Saga, or make a Guy, which feels like a bit of an error. Alright, a Caracas, we can beat that. Exploration, and a Maze of Ith. Alright, we can beat that. We have double Not of This World. We need to find a black source and a Hexmage. But we could blow this up as well with like a Boseiju. I don't think I want to play this out into a wasteland. I think we are just on the play the Thespian Stage plan. Maybe copy something exciting from our opponent. Another Maze of Ith. Okay. Our Thespian Stage can't copy anything because of the Pithing Needle, actually. It doesn't just stop a combo when it stops us doing anything. A Ghost Quarter. That finds us some black mana if we draw the Hexmage. But we do have a fair few things to get through over there. This is going to give them 3-4 guys now. So they probably just get a Saga. We could get a Wasteland, but a Saga's fine here, I think. It just allows them to win in like 3 turns. Alright, just getting a Wasteland and they're just going to beat down with their Elvish Reclaimers instead of holding them up. That's fair enough too. A Blast Zone. There's so many layers of stuff we have to get through here. But we can Ghost Quarter away a Maze. Yeah, we Ghost Quarter away a Maze. We Not of This World, the Caracas and Maze activations. We just need to find an answer to this Wasteland as well as a Vampire Hexmage. So Pithing Needle into Hexmage is where I want to be. Okay, they're using their Maze of Ith aggressively now. Alright, that's one of the things we needed to happen. We could name the Maze of Ith. And that frees up 2 activations. I think we do just get the Wasteland, take the Wasteland out though. We've got a line to win the game. They're going to put us to lethal next turn. So we're going to have to block with our Marit if we can find the Vampire Hexmage here. Yeah, so using this Maze of Ith so I can get activations of Reclaimer as well. This has to be Vampire Hexmage. I guess it could be Boseiju. No, that doesn't do it. Alright, we had a pretty good shot, but our opponent did have their one of Boseiju that just absolutely nubbled us. And that is going to happen sometimes. Right, the Sylvan Safekeeper is good, the Dismembers are good, the Abrupt Decays are good. Pithing Needle is pretty useful, we don't need Bojuka Bog here. The Duress looks pretty bad. Like, it can take out Swords to Plowshares from ruining our day, but that's about it. We need to keep these Pithing Needles. The Not of This World is useful. I have a lot of stuff that we don't want. I think it's just hand disruption that goes here. We could bring in some Force of Vigors over things like Thoughtseize, but I don't think that's where I want to be. Right, I'm going to go like this. This is a no from me, I'm afraid. Okay. This does have the things we require. I'll keep this. I'm going to reluctantly bottom this Sejiri Steppe. We have a lot of lands in our deck that we can draw. This will have to get us a Bayou due to the nature of how this game is panning out. So we drop the Pithing Needle. We name Wasteland. That's a tool that our opponent has that we don't as well. Now we have potentially crop rotation into Urborg. Vampire Hexmage next turn is a thing that we can attempt if we draw the Hexmage. Whether or not we actually attempt that, I don't know. Seems a little on the wild side. A Mox Diamond, so our opponent gets to accelerate out here. A Bojuka Bog. Surprised that's even still in our opponent's deck. A Boseiju in play rather than jamming us up being in our opponent's hands. That's nice. What are we going to see here? A Life from the Loam. Okay. Not the most exciting. Surprised they didn't do a different land there, so they could keep the Boseiju in hand. But maybe that means that's the only lands they've got. That would suggest that's the case. So you generally want to keep this Boseiju as an active piece as long as possible. Now, obviously, they can crop rotate this and then loam it back. Okay, we've got a Verdant Catacombs here. So we're close to going off. There's a wasteland there. They milled over a Riftstone portal. You can see the Life from the Loam. I don't think it's worth trying to Abrupt Decay a Mox Diamond here. We want to save that for neither Reliquary or Elvish Reclaimer. Those are kind of scarier threats. So if they play a Yawgmoth, it helps us out. Okay, that's not a Yawgmoth. Exploration. That is the sort of thing we could blow up if we wanted to. But I think it's already doing... Oh, they're playing the Yawgmoth out. That does help us. Another Exploration, sure. And a Bojuka Bog. Don't care about that one. Okay. 2 cards left in our opponent's hand. A Sylvan Scrying. That's probably not where I want to be here. I think we just want to try and make the 2020 here. We've got to be wary that our opponent can interact with us. They got a lot of mana as well, so it's just a case of do they have the card or not. A Force of Vigor is gone. They got a Blast Zone, that doesn't do anything here. You're just going to see this Life from the Loam. Getting the Blast Zone and the Depths. Understood. There's a Blast Zone. There's the Depths. So we can copy their Depths and leave ours as a thing that we get to use. That's always quite a nice trick. An Expedition map. Sure. I'm going to go and get something like a Caracas here. Tap this for green. Let's crop rotate away this Verdant Catacombs into a Thespian stage. Oh, I forgot to float the mana. That's really embarrassing, isn't it? Absolutely tanked that one. What am I doing? My poor little brain must be riddled with more COVID than I thought. Yeah, we had an attempt there. And now we've absolutely stacked it there. Playing badly against a bad matchup is not going to do me any favours, is it? We also did have to worry about the Blast Zone into Wasteland last turn. Our opponent's got a Ghost Quarter. Yeah, if we went for it last turn, we had to rely on our opponent to make a mistake. So we can make them blow up both of their explorations here. But that's just not going to help us. Our opponent's just got so many layers of stuff we have to get through. Let's play out this forest. That's Scrying. Let's got our own Ghost Quarter here. If our opponent finds something like a Saga, they can start actually applying pressure whilst they've got us in this lock. The Ghost Quartering their own lands, they can get the Boseiju into hand. Not a great situation for us to be in. Wasteland, Ghost Quarter. Yikes. That's a lot of stuff to deal with. Just going to go get rid of our Pithing Needle here. I don't think we can win this one. They just had us in a bind for so long. Yeah, really tough matchup. I think it's about 80-20 in our opponent's favour. We did make a little misplay by not floating the mana off of our Catacombs. But the problem is our opponent still had the Blast Zone Wasteland thing that was going to stop us. So we're just not getting through all the things our opponent has there. And they've also got Plows on their deck, which is yet another level of grim to try and get through. Alright, so after 4 rounds, we are 2-2. So we're going for the positive record. Let's see if we can nail that down. This hand requires a second piece of black mana. That's all it requires, and we get to win the game with a decent chunk of protection. I think I'm going to keep it. Thundering Fall. So probably looking at Delver, which is one of the sort of matchups that we are very much built to beat. That is the second piece of black mana. We can just go for it right now. But that does play into a whole bunch of things. I think I'm going to go and get a Bayou here. And play this Pithing Needle. If our opponent dazes, we can pay. So next turn we can play the Hexmage around a daze. Oh, an Ancient Tomb. We're looking at some sort of show and tell style deck list. Aha. That is a very different beast. I see. Let's play a Lotus Petal out. Let's cast a Hexmage. And let's pass. Maybe we have to go in our opponent's end step here. But we will see. Okay, a Ponder. They could still go this turn, like they've got an activation of Arcane Artisan. If you're not familiar with this one, target player draws a card, then exiles a card from their hand. If a creature card is exiled, create a token that's a copy of that card. Problem here is, they can do this in our turn, so I think we have to go right now. Which is awkward. Oh, are we just in? We are. So we might be looking at a chump blocking Emrakul or something. However, if there is a what's the black? Archon of Cruelty, that can jam us right up here. It's been a hot minute since I've seen the Arcane Artisan. Pretty cool. I think it's better than the 3-mana thing that flips based on the top of the deck. Alright, don't be an Archon. Okay, I don't think it's an Archon of Cruelty. It would have taken longer if it was. That's a lot of stuff over there. A lot of stuff. A Pithing Needle on Wasteland is not going to achieve very much, I'm afraid. So you got Brazen Borrower, Force of Will, Omniscience. So they can Brazen Borrower this, and Force of Will are not of this world. And that's probably going to be lights out at that point. A sneak attack. What creature are they going to put in? It's the Spaghetti Monster, so we're going to lose all of our permanents. I think we can probably call it there. Whew. Oakley dokley. So we've seen Brazen Borrower, so stuff that protects our guys are pretty good. We've also seen that they're running the 3-mana thing, so it's kind of making us want this Abrupt Decay. The Force of Vigor, also pretty good for things like sneak attack. We do not require Bojuka Bog, so that can go. We definitely want all of our hand disruption. It's a case of, do we want these Not of This World or Pithing Needles? I think we can probably get rid of the Not of This World. Sylvan Safekeeper just sits in play and does a slightly better job and does a little bit of pressuring. The Force of Vigor is good here. Like the Abrupt Decay and the Dismember are both kind of important because we are expecting someone like Blood Moon out of our opponent as well. Do we get to play with Sylvan Safekeeper is the question here. I don't think we have enough slots to sideboard. And then from here we'd probably have to trim down on some of the slightly slower stuff. We don't really have any of that slower stuff. Like we could take out a Sylvan Scrying and just say we're just going to have to throw caution into the wind and do some crop rotting. That could be a little sketchy though. So this can name Arcane Artisan and Sneak Attack. So that's two important things it can stop. I think we're just going to be losing a bit of fast mana here, which is awkward, but I think we need these other tools. I'm hoping our opponent goes into a Blood Moon style plan against us. Alright, we've got Hand Disruption into looking for our Dark Depths. This is okay. Is okay good enough? Lots of things can speed this up as a hand. I think we can go better than this though. This is kind of a very similar hand to the previous one. I can probably chuck the Lotus Petal, although that does represent a whole turn off the clock. Or we could go for a more miraculous 5. I think we're going to go for a more miraculous 5. Our opponent can do some stuff pretty quickly here. Oh, this is a really scary one. Because this hand needs us to find a thing. So how many would we put back here? 2. So we get rid of like the Force of Vigor and the Abrupt Decay here. And then we're looking for one of 12 cards. Is that better than going to form? We have some disruption for some of our opponent's things. Like, how useful do we think the 4-card hand is going to be? That is a tough one. I hate keeping these hands that don't have access to Dark Depths. Sometimes I keep the ones that have access to Dark Depths, but not the other half of the combo. But so what sort of 4-card hands do we want? Like Thoughtseize, Urborg, Hexmage, Dark Depths. Or Thespian Stage, Urborg, Hand Disruption, something like that. I think we got to go to 4. Okay, it's not quite what I wanted, but it's not a million miles away. This does attempt to win the game, so we can keep this. So we get rid of this, this, and this. I'll lead out on the Urborg here. I think the Winds of Fate are against us on this one. There is the Lotus Petal. Are they just going on turn 1? Thespian Stage. Is that better than the Verdant Catacombs here? I don't think so. So if they show and tell in like just a reasonable monster, we have a chance to win the game. Because we put in our Thespian Stage. there is an argument to try and crop right in response to that ponder. They did not shuffle. Like, we can't combo this turn anyway, so we're going to take another turn. A Pithing Needle. I think we're better off trying to shove than trying to stop the sneak attack. A Brainstorm. That's a pretty strong one. If they show and tell, we can put in the Pithing Needle, which might stop the sneak attack. Ancient Tomb. This feels like a go turn for our opponent. No. They can hard cast a Force of Will. Let's go for it. It's a thing that we can do. We get a Dark Depths here. Feels like our opponent is sat on a Brazen Borrower. But our opponent is sculpting, so it's not getting any better from us. For us from here. Boop our little friend. Yeah. Okay, there's the Petty Theft. Right, so let's Thoughtseize our opponent. Now we're in defensive mode, trying to build up again. If we'd have waited a turn, we could have drawn the Thoughtseizes. They're pitching. Show and tell. Alright, let's play this on sneak attack, because that's the thing that kills us immediately. And he's going to beat us down with a Brazen Borrower. There's a sneak attack. Well, we named the right thing. We just need to draw a Dark Depths. Not a Dark Depths. I will fire this off. I'll take any sort of cantrips our opponent has. Okay, an Atraxa and an Emrakul. So we know what we're working up against here. Surprised they played out that sneak attack. I think they might just be in better shape just playing out the Borrower and attacking us down. Because they can play the sneak attack and activated it in one turn down the line. Unless the next card that they put down off of the Arcane Artisan. Yikes. Well, that's terrible news for us, because that can just get them an Emrakul. So another Pithing Needle? No. So in our next turn, they make an Emrakul, and then they just kill us. Yeah, we'll just scoop it up. No need to keep playing that one. So we finished with a not so good 2-3, which is unfortunate. But if we look at the matchups, we had one really hard matchup in the Green-White Depths deck, which is a nightmare. The Nadu matchup, we lost by drawing a card one turn too late twice. So we were very close to winning those. I'd be more than happy to ball straight into that matchup again. I think that's fine. We beat the blue-black base matchup. Yeah, the blue-black base matchup we beat. That's certainly one of the things we're trying to beat with this deck, and that felt pretty good. That last one, Arcane Artisan is kind of an interesting one that you don't see very often. It was certainly very good against us because we're not really trying to remove their creatures in a big way. So that was definitely a little bit awkward for us. But I think we gave a pretty good account of ourselves there. We absolutely smashed the matchups that were good for us. Let's talk about the deck. So, how would things have been different if we had some other new cards that we decided not to run today? So if we had the Bauble, that would have given us the ability to play through Force of Will. But that's all it would have really done in these matchups. And we beat one of the Force of Will matchups just A-OK. The Sneak and Show matchup, it wouldn't have really mattered because the problem wasn't necessarily that they were countering our spells. It was the fact that they had their combo going off and they also had interruption for ours. Which, we mulled pretty aggressively, so that was always a possibility. So I don't think we needed the Baubles at all in this league. And that's fine. As for the Disruptor Flute, that definitely could have done some work. So we could have used that to name an Arcane Artisan, just to have additional Pithing Needles would have been nice. We could have used that against the Green-White Depths deck where they got so many different permanents we need to be naming with our Disruptor Flutes. So I think I like the Flute, but I'm not really into the Bauble, certainly not as a main deck card right now. What I quite wanted here was a couple of Elvish Reclaimers. So I've been running a couple of Reclaimers sort of over this Inquisition of Kozilek slot, generally speaking, because just having more tutors is fine. Now, we'd have to mulligan quite aggressively. Our deck does do that. We did mulligan more than average. It's not that common to go to 5s and 4s this frequently. But it is kind of the volatile nature of this deck sometimes. We have these ridiculous hands of turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 2020 with protection sometimes. So you take the rough with the smooth. And we got a bit of the rough today, and that's okay. But obviously, DarkDepthsAniki did a pretty sweet job getting the 4th place in the challenge with this exact list. Sideboard-wise, I'm still not big on Dismember and Force of Vigor. And I do think the Bauble is good in the Collector Ouphe slot. Because usually in those matchups, we don't want Not of This World. So the matchups where we don't want Not of This World, they can quite easily become the Bauble, and that doesn't really hurt us. And that's just a nice swap that we can make that will stop all like the 0-dropped artifact mana and stuff. But what I will say is Collector Ouphe does, or Null Rod does a very important thing against those decks, where what they can do is they can play Veil of Summer, and then they can play into the Bauble and it won't counter anything. So they can do that and then just riffle off a bunch of stuff and kill you. Whereas with the Collector Ouphe, it could just shut off their mana and stuff, making it a lot more difficult for them to go off. But then they do have things like Dark Rituals, sometimes Rite of Flame, stuff like that. So they can still ritual their way through, and it can be a bit of a pain. What I will say has been attracting my attention lately is Damping Sphere. Let me just pull that one up for you. So this is Damping Sphere. It's a 2-mana artifact. If a land is tapped for 2 or more mana, it produces colorless instead of any other type. And each spell costs 1 more to cast for each other spell that player has cast this turn. So the reason I like this is the new Cloud Post matchups have become somewhat annoying. And this can answer some of that Cloud Post stuff whilst also being good against Storm. So this is definitely something I'm considering running over Collector Ouphe in the next league I run with this deck. I think that'd be quite handy. Being able to stop our opponents being able to just do really early, like Mycosynth, Mycospawn Eldrazi. Sowing Mycospawn, that's the one, which can blow up a land as well as going to fetch a wasteland. So this is just a nice way of shutting that down. But what I did feel like I wanted was some Disruptor Flutes. I think a couple of those in the sideboard would be quite nice here. So what I'm probably going to be looking at next time I play something along these lines is getting rid of these Force of Vigors and Dismembers. Going up to the 4 Decays, possibly only 3. And then that gives us a slot for some Disruptor Flutes. And then we can go up to 3 Damping Sphere. And that might be quite a nice approach to this one. So that's my plan for next time around, I think. But I do still like the deck. It is very polarizing. It does have matchups that are horrible, matchups that feel like amazing and unlosable. And it is sort of one of those decks. So you need to play the matchup lottery a bit. But considering it's good into blue-black, it feels like a good place to run it now. It's obviously going to be better to run challenges like DarkDepthsAniki did and came 4th in the challenge. I think running it into the higher end of the meta is better. In leagues, you're going to run into sort of more weird and wonderful decks that might just sort of body you in a way that you're not really prepared for. But what the deck does is intrinsically powerful. Making a massive 2020 as early as turn 1, if you've got the right amount of Lotus Petals and stuff, can just win games anyway. And I think it's just a really good proactive deck to be playing right now. And I think running too many of the new cards is definitely a potential point of failure. I do like the Shifting Woodland though. That is something I have enjoyed. In the slower matchups, it lets you attempt a combo for a second time a lot easier. Because you're going to have like an artifact, a creature, a land, an instant, a sorcery. You know, you're putting your types in your graveyard. So getting the Shifting Woodland off isn't actually that difficult. So I have enjoyed having that. But then it has to come at the expense of a slot in the deck somewhere. And quite often that's going to mean cutting one of these discard spells. So you get down to 7 discard spells to get your Shifting Woodland in there. Which is just kind of like another piece of redundancy in certain situations. But just having more lands isn't the worst. This is quite a land light build because it's not running the Yawgmoth, so it's running 1 less than I normally would do. So I think cutting one of the Inquisitions or the Duresses for a Shifting Woodland would probably be good, and then do the changes I mentioned in the sideboard. But yeah, Dark Depths is a really interesting one. I'm currently in the process of writing up the guide, this month's version of the guide. There's a lot of changes now because I'm really rolling all the Modern Horizons 3 stuff in, and now I've had enough testing with it all to work out where it all sits. But I think the question of if it ain't broke, don't fix it still holds. This, you know, I think having the most direct line and having these really flexible pieces of interaction, like just the information to know you can go off, is really good too. And I do like this deck a great deal, as you've probably guessed. Alright, that's me for today. So please remember to like and subscribe. It does help the channel out. It means you don't miss any of my content. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.
If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, A mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbo Depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles. And lastly, the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.